Good evening and welcome to Tech Charged, Turn Down for What podcast live. This is episode 24, and today we are joined by, as always, worldwide EV legend Jace Craft Miller.
Howdy.
And Martin is off in international borders still, coming back or out in Canada. We're not sure if they're going to let him back in the country. He is not able to. He is not able to I guess, send his signal out this way with even Starlink. So
the bandwidth is not there.
It is not there. So we were looking for a guest, and our good friend Erick Penzon, who I have butchered his last name and not said it properly, but from Electrified Marina, I am looking for ways to spend more money, and Erick has promised to find some. So welcome, Erick, to the show.
Let's go, man. Thanks. I'm glad this worked out. It was super last minute, but it was great timing. Glad this is happening.
Yeah, thanks for making time on the show. Now, look, I am the girly man of the group. I do not off-road my vehicle. It is a pavement princess. I do not own a boat. I do not fish. This is definitely in the purview of Martin and Jace. So I apologize that you are stuck with me. So I will have lots of dumb questions. My boating experience is comprised of like that little yellow submarine at Disneyland. I think that is the only electric boat I've been on. So
you were on a boat in Norway not that long ago. It's just a very large boat.
Very large boat. That was a ship, I guess.
Yes.
Yes. And that one definitely sort of electric. I guess it's got electric motors, but they definitely burned some more fuel. So I'm super excited to hear all about the offerings, because I see your videos all the time, and I hate them because I constantly be convinced, dude, I need to get a boat.
You do. It makes for great content. It's like almost viral within itself because nobody's making content with electric boats.
No, seriously, this is so bad. I'm rationalizing in my head, bro, I can make content with this.
That's right off it.
I did the same. I've done the same.
Oh my God.
No doubt.
Welcome, by the way, Electrified Overlanding, great new YouTube channel that he bought a Lightning. He's going to be switching his F-150 over to an overlanding gear. So he's just started dropping some videos. So check him out. Super cool dude. Looking forward to seeing that channel grow. Thanks for popping on in the chats with us. But yeah, man, Erick, dude, how did you get into this? Introduce yourself. Like, is this your full-time deal? And how did it happen? Like, tell us about electric boats a little bit, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about my how I started my morning with Robotaxi, and then once we're done with that kind of stuff, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty, let the audience build and see what questions they have, and just talk all things boating. And you and Jace can kind of share the differences between, I don't know what's going to say motorboat, but that conjures up all kinds of different images. What is the proper term? Boating? Boating, boating.
Yeah, boating.
So
introduce yourself, Erick. Talk to us about.
I'll start with my background and how the heck I got here. So started life as a mechanic. Had zero boating experience at all. I got my boating license when we got the LLC for the company 3 years ago. I grew up not exposed to any electric cars or tech or much of anything. I was always a tinkerer working on lawnmowers and stuff, but started life as a mechanic. I dropped out of community college. I thought I wanted to be an engineer, and that lasted like a couple months. I went to automotive tech school, went through BMW scholarship program called BMW Step. Got a job at a dealership as a BMW tech, did really well. My life got turned upside down when I rode in a Tesla Roadster in 2011. And I had a 500 horsepower BMW. I was drinking the Kool-Aid at BMW. I was restoring them. Like I was going to work there and retire there. And I rode in a Tesla Roadster, and it's like BMW has no clue what they're doing, and this company's going to eat their lunch. And I put in my notice, like I did some interviewing and finally got an offer that worked out. And I started with Tesla in 2012. I was with them when the Model S first rolled out. I was supposed to open a service center in San Diego. I ended up working and living at the factory for 6 months. I literally, like at the Tesla factory, there's a Marriott across from there, and I lived there for 6 months and bounced around a bunch of different service centers in San Diego, Rockville, Maryland, Tysons, Richmond, mobile technician stuff, charging infrastructure stuff for like the destination charging program. mobile technician management. I ended up pseudo retiring in 2021 when I left Tesla. Did 9 years there. We were slowly buying real estate, like single family homes, making a couple $100 off each one. It wasn't quick money, but they added up. And it got to the point where it was able to, we got a roommate literally to cover half, there was 2/3 of our mortgage. And we cut our lifestyle back and I retired. We did a big long road trip. I didn't know what I was going to do. Tried a couple endeavors. Nothing really panned out. We were looking for small real estate, like apartment complexes. My business partner, who is equally as crazy as I am, she was at SpaceX for 10 years while I was at Tesla for 9. She met me while I was at Tesla, and we ended up agreeing to go in on an apartment complex together. We tried a couple, didn't pan out. She ended up finding a small marina. It was 16 slips. And the only way it financially made sense was with like a boat rental business or tiny houses. And we wanted to put like tiny floating homes on it. Just like do a bunch of houseboats and Airbnb them. The city said no, and then we defaulted to a boat rental business, and I like wasn't interested in gas boats at all. She brought up the Duffy boats in Newport Beach. We looked into them, and they had like old school lead acid and like overly complex powertrain for what it was. We found a company called Vision Marine out of Montreal, Canada, had super simple, like the perfect rental boats. We approached them. We were going to buy a couple. And they said, hey, you should become a dealer. A couple $100 later, we became a dealer. I was never like a salesman in my life. I was kind of one naturally. But we became a dealer for them. And fast forward 3 years, we represent a dozen brands. We're the only electric-only boat dealer in the country. I've got the largest, we've got like a megawatt of boats sitting in my marina right now. So we ended up buying that marina, and we started the boat rental business. But I essentially wiped out all my Tesla money, my Elon bucks, and dumped it into real estate, into the marinas, and into the boat business. And it was a huge Hail Mary. And it was funny because in the beginning it was like, hey, we're going to start an electric boat rental business. And then it turned into sales. And like, wait, why is nobody doing this? And that should have been the red flag. Like nobody's that crazy. And it wasn't enough. And me and my headstrong partner managed to convince our spouses who thought we were crazy. And that was 3 years ago. And we have learned a lot of what not to do. We've been blowing through money, scaling a startup. And like most businesses, like you can follow blueprints of somebody that's done it before, but we're literally the only ones in the country doing this. And there's a couple tiny outfits out there that have like one electric boat brand, and we collaborate with them as much as we can. I open my playbook, tell them everything we've blown money on that wasted money. We tell them what's working, because there's not enough of this doing it. Not enough of us doing this. It's like, imagine electric cars circa 2011, 2012. There's a handful of boats. No, probably 2014, 15. We've got about a dozen or so options out there. They're still expensive. They don't have the most range, but it's good enough for a lot of people. So we have a super tiny demographic that like fits our profile, that can afford to buy these boats, that lives on the right waterway, that has charging at their marina or in their slip. So we're in the innovator stages of this right now, and it's not fun. I don't recommend it really to anybody, unless you just have pockets of money to burn, like millions of dollars to do it right.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that. So Electrified Overlanding chiming in. He's like, "You're gonna get me in trouble with my wife. I avid boater. Didn't know electric boats existed." And you're like, "That's because before me, they didn't."
And that's our biggest problem. Our biggest struggle in sales is our target profile doesn't know this exists at all. And like, if they're not searching for it, they're not going to find it. 50% of our boat buyers are first-time power boat owners. They've never been interested until you take away the worst parts of boat ownership. It's like the maintenance and the fuel. Now you're fueling up for a fifth of the cost, and your maintenance is almost gone. There's still going to be stuff that goes wrong on a boat, whether it's a bilge pump or a shift actuator or a radio. But we've been in business 3.5 years, and we've never done a repair on the high voltage system. Batteries and motors have been amazing. It's pretty surprising too, because some of those Vision Marine cocktail boats, we had batteries that were 7 and 8 years old that were used in Southern California in Newport Beach. So they're getting used 250 to 300 times a year. And those batteries had the equivalent of like 30 years worth of a consumer use on it. And they still had like 80 to 85% state of health, which was impressive.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. It's Jace, had you known about electric boats before Erick, or is that how you discovered Erick?
Sort of. So we had an older Chaparral for our first boat that we bought in, I want to say it was like 2017, 2018, something around there. We had that for like 4 or 5 years, and then when we were looking to upgrade our current boat last year, we did look for a hot second at EV boats, but everything was kind of out of our price range, at least for like kind of what we were looking for. Another thing you have to remember is we live on Lake Erie, so like it's a great lake. Yeah, we could be going. We don't, honestly. It's the same argument like with EV ownership, right? Like I find myself watching your videos on TikTok and such, and I'm seeing the exact same arguments that I have to tell people with EV ownership, right? Like you get a boat, like even on a Great Lake, like Lake Erie, we're still a lot of the time just going and hanging out on a beach. We drive like 2 miles and then we hang out there all day, and then we drive 2 miles back to the ramp, and it's like, what do you really even need the boat for, right? Other than like hanging out on a raft.
We do it too, man. We spend like 90% of the day at the sandbar, and it's like it's cool because only boats can get there. And then there's a beach that we will go to that's part of a state park, but it instantly runs out of parking. And like we're known at, like amongst our friends as the guys with the boat, and we'll fit like 3 families worth on there. But it's the same thing in the automotive world. I'm going to plan for that 2 road trips a year to grandmother's house, so through the woods in the snow, uphill both ways.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, that's why you need 1,000 miles of range.
yeah. So like we thought about it, but I think for us, budget was definitely still like probably, at least for what type of boat we were looking for. We were still probably a little out of the realm of possibility for us, but like we would definitely, it's something we would consider. I'm excited to hear more about like how because we trailer our boats. So I'd be so curious, like, is it possible to charge at home, or like just those little things? It'll be so fascinating to hear.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because I did all of this with Tesla. I've been on our Clean Cities Coalition. I've ran the National Drive Electric Week events for a decade, the Earth Day events, literally as much public education as my relationship could support or not at times. Sure. But all of that is the same thing in boating, in terms of charging infrastructure. Thankfully, most marina slips have electricity. Most docks have electricity. If they've got a boat lift, they've probably got enough power. Ideally, if it's a bigger boat, a 30 or 50 amp service at 220 is ideal. Slow charging overnight, just like an electric car. Most of our boats have a J1772 plug, or just like the 3-prong like Marina 50 amp twist lock. Nice. And so if it's a marina, they've probably got 50 amp service. We have faster chargers out there. You could charge on a 100 amp circuit, or even 3-phase, 75 kilowatt DC fast chargers. But that's not the normal use case. And there's about a dozen of those on the water in the United States right now. And we're working to change that. And there's companies that help give away charging stations, fast charging stations, to marinas. And it's the pioneering days of electric cars, circa 2012 and 13. But it's pretty cool to be a part of it. And I was pitching to a VC company the other day, and this guy said, you guys are the biggest catalyst in electric boats right now. How's that feel? And he thought my team was like huge. There's like 8 of us. We're not a big team. It's a startup. It's very scrappy right now, where we're each wearing 3 hats. It's almost nightmarish. But it's kind of crazy to think about. It's a big Hail Mary right now. There's still consolidation going on in the boating industry. We're bleeding cash. Hopefully I raise some capital so that we can put some more money into the business. It's a very much a long play right now. So it's super risky. And I'm actually going to Monaco next week in terms of to hopefully raise some capital. Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think we're kind of deep into it now. I was originally going to talk in a different order, but dude, the momentum is there, so I'm not going to break it off. I just think
I warned you.
No, it's good. It's all good stuff, man. Like I talk to people all the time about how I live in the Bay Area. I'm surrounded by the Bay and the Delta. Like when I go where my warehouse is that I work in my 9 to 5, when I go to the end of the parking lot, I am literally looking at the Bay. And I grew up in a Delta town. It's a bit of a city now, but when I grew up, it was more of a town. And we had a marina, and you could go along the Delta and fish for sturgeon. And we had a couple bridges. We have a whole mothball fleet we would go hang out at. You can take the Delta all the way from the Bay, all the way up to the Sacramento River. There is a lot of area where I think there is calm water that would be perfect for an electric boat. I don't have any clue what the marinas are like in terms of electrification here. I believe, and I apologize if it wasn't you, but I believe I've seen you guys in Tahoe.
Not us. It was Arc.
Oh, it was Arc. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a couple other guys that have been to Tahoe, but Arc dominates marketing in the electric boat space right now. They're absolutely crushing it. They probably have a team of people doing it too.
That's the only one I had seen, and I saw that they had a DC charger there.
So that's Aqua Superpower that is putting those in, and they saw what Tesla did on land, and they want to put fast chargers on the water and maintain that infrastructure.
Yeah, we've got questions coming in. I know I have questions. Let's talk a couple of them, right? What type of boats are your biggest sellers? Deck boats, cabin cruisers. I mean, I've seen a couple different videos.
So inventory has been a struggle for us. These manufacturers, some of them can't build boats fast enough. We're going to be more prepared for next season, and I'm going to be more prepared in terms of capital. But like 21-foot bow riders, there's a company called Flux Marine that's a super cool electric powertrain company. They've partnered with Scout, and so they've got a 21-foot bow rider and a center console. It's $120,000. That's a high mover for us. They put their powertrain on pontoons. And so there's different categories of electric boats. There's like slow cabin cruisers or slow cruisers that are like 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And those are typically like 48 volt systems. And then there's a step up, and it's like 96 to 144 volts. So like 30 to, I don't know, I'd say 100 horsepower. And then above that is the high voltage 300 to 400 volts. But any of the big guys, whether it's Vision Marine has a 180 horsepower motor that they put on tri-tunes, big, like 20, 30 footers. So yeah, the 21 footer bow riders. That one was the X-Shore, actually. Those are pretty awesome.
And I just pulled up your website. So people, I've got the website in the description for those that want to check it out. And so it's electrifiedmarina.com. And again, links in the description for those that want to give a little easy click. And I see as we scroll down, it has down here, are these things that are currently in inventory right now that you've got available?
Yep. That one on the right actually just sold last week. But the other two are. So these are like deck boats. This guy's a center console out of Sweden, 26 feet. And those are $200,000 to $300,000. Those are older demos that have some discounts on them. I've got that boat to the left over in my marina right now. But it's a 21 footer. That's a cuddy cabin. They've got a bow rider version of it as well, but it's a super cool company out of Sweden. There's not too many conventional boat builders in the electric boat space. They're all followers. They're not leaders. And so
like the one I saw recently was Four Winds. Do they have something coming, or they're working on something?
So they were with Vision Marine at 180 horsepower, but it's crazy because it's the same thing in the automotive world that happened back in the day. And the dealers say, oh, the customers don't want it. Well, yeah, you don't have a viable product to offer that's good. And so a lot of these manufacturers kind of clash with their dealers in terms of demand and forcing it. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But Four Winds partnered with Vision Marine on a couple boats. Didn't have a high take rate. And it's not on the Vision or the Four Winds website anymore, so I'm not sure where that's at. But some of these boat builders like X-Shore, they are doing their own boats and then buying off the shelf parts for the powertrain. So in the electric boat world, there's some custom boat builders that are doing like their own electric boats, like the hulls from the ground up, but most of them are buying components for the powertrain. And then there's the powertrain companies that are partnering with boat builders. So it just kind of all depends on which category we're talking about.
So as someone that is totally ignorant of the boat world, when I just scroll through from a purely like visceral perspective, right? This one grabs my attention. This plug and play, 160,000, and then the Vols Navy right here. Like these kind of, for whatever reason, just get my eye, and I'm like, especially this one. Like if I was going to buy a boat, although now that I look at the prices, it's going to take a little bit longer. Like and subscribe to Boat Family EV and the Turn Down for What podcast.
Turn to Boat Family EV.
I need Boat Family EV. I'm going to need a little bit more subscribers. I'm gonna.
You could rent it out, man. It'll be fine.
Let's go. Let's get some super chats going. But this one, especially as a bald guy, like it's got a little roof on it. I'm digging it, man. I'm digging it.
I love that thing. It's got speakers, lights. It's actually a flip down TV in the front of that thing. We just sold it like a week ago.
These are
like the party barges.
Yeah.
I think that's important too, Chris. Like, as in the boating world, you have to sort of purchase your boat too on what lake you're going to be boating on, right? Like, so we obviously go to Lake Erie. That's, you don't see a lot of pontoons out on Lake Erie. Very rarely, sometimes, but on calm days, but you'll see a lot of speedboats and some yachts, of course, as well. But then, we take our boat to a lake called Portage Lake. So it's a little finger lake that it would be perfect for electric boats. We go there all the time, and there's, I don't know, probably 1,000 to 2,000, 3,000 homes on this lake, and they just putz around all day. And something like this would be absolutely perfect. I definitely see a market for it, but I get all of, being an EV fan, I see where you're at,
What makes these boats $200,000 boats, which it looks like I could be like one guy standing here, but I don't see a lot of space in this, but it's 200 grand. But then this one, where I feel like, where to go? This one, I'm feeling all about it. And this one's, 50 grand less. Again, it's just total ignorance, right? Why? What am I missing?
There's a lot to that X-Shore. There's a lot of carbon fiber into it. It'll do 35 miles an hour versus the other one that'll do 30 or 25. But you can still hold 10 people in there. There's like a picnic table in the back of it. But this is more of like a.
And this, I could take this on a Great Lake or any lake, really, honestly, Chris. But like a pontoon would be limited to, an inland lake, or maybe a Great Lake if it's a really, really nice day. But either way, if you get caught out there on a pontoon, you could die. So
my Delta area would be fine for my pontoon with the ceiling on it. That would do well. Can I putz around the Delta?
He loves the ceilings. All about the ceiling.
Go. That's all I care about, man.
Dude, I'm right there with you, man.
I would gotta have the hat on. I will burn with the hat on.
Everybody gives me shit, man. I'm out in the full sun shirt, a huge hat every single time, man. I don't mess around, and I spend a lot of time outside.
In boat world, Chris.
And how does this compare? We always talk about in vehicles, right? There seems to be like a $10,000 or so delta. If I can get a gas truck for this, it's going to be 10 grand more. If I can get a sports car for that, it'll be 10 grand more. And obviously there's extreme examples like Porsche Taycan, but in general, your Model 3, your Model Ys are, 10 grand more than what I could go and get a Honda for or something. So in the boating world, what's the delta on these?
So it's kind of all over the board, man. So like our highest movers was the 21-foot Scouts I was mentioning. Those are $120,000. The X-Shore is obviously like double the price of an average 26-foot boat, maybe more than double. But they're expensive. Batteries are very expensive right now. That boat, for instance, that X-Shore, it's got two 63 kilowatt hour packs in it. And they're made by Chrysler, and it's like the most popular batteries out there in the marine world because they've got all the certifications. But it's 80 grand. Retail is 80 grand worth of batteries in that one boat. Actually, both of those boats had the same batteries, but that's a big portion of it. So the
like Four Winds, it's like 60 to 70, Chris, like ish, right around there. You could like a 21-foot Four Winds, maybe even a little more 80, but that's for a ice, equivalent to a 21-foot. But then, same thing with like, normal boats. You can go all a center console could be Robalo could be like 50,000, right? And then you could go all the way up to a Cobalt at 170,000 or whatever. So,
right, and wake boats are quickly in the $300,000 price range.
Oh my gosh, they're crazy.
And then I just wanted to point out, you also have a YouTube channel. We've got this linked in the description as well, and you can go and see some of the videos that you've done here. So check out the YouTube channel. Lots of cool stuff here. In fact, I'm going to subscribe right now so I can start to look at some of these. I think as we looked at some more of the comments, and then I want to go back and kind of look at here after we look at some of the comment ones. We'll go in and check out kind of your showroom page, and you can walk us through what that looks like. But the Electrified Overlanding was asking about the used electric boat market. Has there been enough electric boat to have used electric boats yet?
I've got a list of 20 to 30 people across the country waiting for good deals on used boats, which keeps the depreciation less. And it's like I have boats that are getting traded in, and they're usually sold before they're traded in.
Wow.
which is pretty cool. And there's some depreciation there. There has to be some kind of difference, but it's not like 50% off a year later. It's like 20-ish% off a year later. So very reasonable. The demand and supply is keeping them pretty high.
Yeah, Derek talking about on his lake, someone put in solar panels on the hard top of the pontoon, which just sounds like an awesome idea. I mean, now I get both a roof and some solar, and if you're just kind of chilling along, giving yourself time, every little bit's going to matter for that.
And so that works perfectly in low speed applications, anything under 20, 30 horsepower. If you're not doing that a lot, it's perfect. So, but you got to think about how many like tour boats and passenger boats, people doing, the tiki cruises or the paddle pub stuff, those tours, like you cover that thing in solar, you'll hardly ever have to plug it in because they're staying in local bays and lakes. Ooh, I think that might be a typo, or he misheard me. So the $80,000 was for 2 of the 63 kilowatt hour batteries, so 126 total. Either way, the price per kilowatt hour is still through the roof compared to the automotive world.
Now, are there batteries like LFPs and things that are coming down in price? Or is that what you're using? Like NMC? What are you using?
So it's a mix based on application, just like the automotive world. Anything 48 volt is usually LFP. There's some NMC that's a little more energy dense. But in the bigger high voltage world, a lot of it is NMC because of energy density. Every little bit counts, especially on a boat, even more so on a boat. But all the batteries are IP67 rated. We've tested it and forgotten a drain plug or two. And the batteries do quite well, even submerged underwater. Not for long periods of time, obviously, but for the 20-30 minutes. And that was
always the big question. Did you put the drain plug in? Is the plug in? If you're a boat owner, you know that question.
My team pulled up to the dock and I saw the bilge pump still running after I dropped them in the water at the boat ramp. And I was like, go back. And it was still pumping.
Martin has found his way and hacked into some internet out there in Canada, and or he's finally got the Starlink to go, but he's saying, hey, and we're gonna get everybody electrifying the boats. It looks like he's been out there fishing, posting pictures, all kinds of great stuff. So I'm sure that'll be the next kind of thing for him. And he was talking about I guess Deere owns Chrysler,
yeah, those batteries I was talking about that are like the industry standard.
Yeah, so are those? Does that mean that they're made in America, or just because it's done by Deere, they're still importing them?
Yeah, they're all from Germany. I believe it's Germany right now. But there's a lot of people that are making their own, essentially getting cells and modules and assembling them themselves. There isn't much in terms of U.S. source, just like the automotive world. But it's going to be interesting because the market is getting super competitive right now, and we're seeing battery prices go down pretty aggressively, more so in the 48 volt space. But there's people. I was just on a boat last week called a Volair. And it's got a 96 volt system that uses 48 volt batteries, and the powertrain on that is a fraction of what it is on the average powertrain, because and especially in terms of insurance certifications, like 48 volt system is safe to work on. That's what golf carts run on. And so they've got like 50 kilowatts, so like 70 horsepower, 75 horsepower. But it's a hydrofoil assist boat, so it doesn't need a ton of power because it's so efficient, which is pretty cool.
So when people go to start looking things on your website, right, and we go to sales, and then under here is the it's going to show under the showroom electric outboards, boat covers, merch stores. Like, where should somebody start?
Showroom right there. Honestly, it's usually easier if someone just reaches out, like that Ask Our Experts things, and then book a call, because there's so much to talk about. I do discovery calls a few times a week, and it's talking about use case and what do you like about boating and what's your charging habits, what waterway are you on, and we go through all the variables. And often it doesn't relate in progressing, because they either can't get charging on their dock because it's core land and it's 500 feet to their dock, or there's no marina slips nearby, or they think they're going to go 100 miles in a boat. So a lot of it's setting expectations. But if you scroll down, you'll start seeing all the different boats that we carry.
So can you, just out of curiosities, I'm sure there's some boat people here, can you give us what is the equivalency for range, like in a 21-foot bow rider? I guess We have, I think, like a 40-gallon tank on our boat. I couldn't tell you for the life of me how far that goes, because obviously we will never do that. But what would the range be like that on something like that?
So think of it like towing a trailer with an electric car, but
Okay.
worse, like 20 times
Yeah.
worse.
Okay.
So
Totally makes sense.
126 kilowatt hour pack in that
Mhm.
X-Shore or that bow rider. That would be like the average Cybertruck Rivian size, 250, 300 miles or so. In an electric boat at planing speed, so call it
Mhm.
20, 25 miles an hour, you're getting 30 miles to a charge.
Ooh,
Okay.
The energy consumption is just crazy. I think water's like 800 times more energy dense than air. It's
Yeah.
something
Mhm.
crazy. But the energy required to get up on plane, to move at 25 miles an hour, that like the party barge, the deck boat, it uses
Yeah.
about 120 kilowatts. So you could consume an entire battery in 1 hour of cruising if
Wow.
you're at top speed in that boat. But the average person's day, and I say average, it's about 40% of pleasure boating is less than 40 miles. So that
Totally.
starts to
Yeah.
work. And so, and you factor in, you're not in wide open throttle all the time.
Right.
And if you
Exactly.
are, if you're in that speedboat, electric boats aren't for you. We just stopped the
Yeah.
conversation right there. But if you're the
Yeah.
average person that goes 5 to 10 miles and goes to that sandbar and then goes a couple miles to the beach and then a couple miles to the restaurant and a couple miles to come home, it's like you
Mhm.
did a 20-mile day. I mean, there's days we'll spend all day out on the water and we'll go to the sandbar and the restaurant and the cove, and it's a
Yep.
10-12 hour day, and we come home and it's like 50% battery. It
Mhm.
happens all
Yeah.
the time.
I think
Yeah,
that's where like we would fit in too. Like I think like, and it's probably obviously very similar to like the EV, conversation. Like it would cover us probably, 90% of the time, even boating on a Great Lake, right? But I could think of other people and other lakes that we go to that it would cover them 100% of the time, all of the time. There would
Right.
be no, and it would be it's such a benefit, just like it is owning an EV, right? Charging, right there at home, not having to worry about going to get wreck gas and filling up on the lake. And I mean, we've done that a million times where it's, with the new boat, especially, you don't want to go to just the gas station and throw ethanol, get a chance that there's going to be ethanol in it. So you want to go get wreck gas, and that's a whole thing in and of itself. So yeah, I can think of so many ways that this relates to the EV industry, and that for most people it will work. But, like you said, the right tool for the job, if you're trying to go, fast all day long, this and 50, like drive to Sandusky from Cleveland, it's probably not gonna work. But
Yeah, and you mentioned about fuel. We sell to a lot of people that don't have marina fuel nearby. And so it's
Yeah.
either on like the opposite side of the lake, or these people don't have it on their waterway. So they're dragging gas caddies down every single
Wow.
time they want to use their boat. And it's like, if washing a boat off wasn't enough pain, or trailering it, it's like now you're dragging fuel to your dock. Like it's just not
Yeah.
fun. And those are easy for us. And then there's electric only lakes too, whether it's because of their
Mhm.
size or because
Yep.
it's a drinking reservoir and they want to regulate the pollution in it. And that's what like a lot of people don't realize. With a gas boat, you're using the water as your filter. Your exhaust is going right into it. So
Mhm.
you're polluting this waterway that you're trying to enjoy. It's interesting when you think about it.
Yeah, it's
I
not
love
just gas, right? There's gear oils and all sorts of other
You
things.
see the
It's not
streak
just
on the top of the water from the two strokes.
yeah,
I love
absolutely.
the idea of just that quiet, peaceful, kind of journey up a river or a lake or the delta out here. I think about, and let's go through a scenario, right? Let's go through a suddenly I got huge videos and now I'm in the boat market, and I'm thinking like, okay, my perfect scenario might be I get a slip or something at the marina in over in Alameda, and I want to go from Alameda into the Delta and even up to the Sacramento River, all the way up to Stockton in that area in Sacramento. Maybe find a place to plug in and come back. So I've got a boat, and I want to figure out, like, if you're in a car, you have an odometer. It tells you how many miles you're going. Again, just not being familiar with boats. Is there the same thing on a boat? Like, would I know, okay, my typical day out on the boat, like, because I might tell somebody, take your car, pay attention to 2 weeks of driving or a month of driving, write down how much you're doing. Let's see how much you're really driving and whether or not an EV works for you. Is it only the 1 or 2 trips a year that are far? Can you do that same thing with a boat to start with it, or is it harder to measure the distance? Like in an airplane, when I used to fly airplanes, it was measured by hours that the motor was running, not really miles. So how is it done in a boat, and how would you know?
Yeah, so there's actually a company that we're in talks with now called Blue Grid, and we can hook up whether through it's a GPS data logger or we hook it up to like a OBD protocol and plug in, and we can track fuel consumption, distance consumed, and they've got they dump it through AI and it prints out these pretty sheets of like, hey, not a good boat owner, or like this is the perfect use case, and here's all the values you're going to get from it. It's going to be really cool for like tour groups. It's like the people doing, whether it's passenger ferries or eco tours or that sort of thing, because there's the amount of boats that go low speed for tourism purposes is huge. And so that fuel consumed, and the easiest way to do it, honestly, is I ask people, how much fuel do you use in your average outing? How long does your tank last? And then they're like, oh, last me 2-3 weeks. Like, okay, on average, like we look up their fuel tank size and how many days they go out, how many hours they're actually motoring. Because just like cars, most people don't realize how little they're actually boating. In my area, we have a bay that's 8 miles long. There's a sandbar and 2 beaches that people park at. And people are there all day long. Like, you might go high speed to get to them, but you're doing it for 20 minutes, cruising around a little bit. And then like you do your day on the beach, you speed up for 20 minutes and go to the restaurant. And then you do like a sunset cruise on the way home. And you're usually doing that at lower speeds. And so now like your entire day was 20-30 miles. And that's the perfect use case for our stuff. That trip you were just talking about, Alameda up towards San Pablo Bay. But if you're going to all the way back into Stockton, it is like a 50-mile trip. So we've got one boat that could make that, and that was the Volair that I was on last week. They've got a hydrofoil assist boat, so it's super efficient. But at planing speeds, it could do like 60 to 80 miles. And so you could make it there if you're going to spend a weekend there, which is common. We sell boats to a lot of people that spend weekend and they play tourist in a new city and they just go there by boat. It's super cool. But they'll boat there and then they're there for the weekend. So you book a slip at a marina. It's called transient, and you just get dockage for the weekend. Plug in while you're there. You got a full charge. You can make it home, and that's a $250,000-$300,000 boat. But again, you could do that. How long? $50,000 gas boat.
How long would that take if you were to plug in at a marina? And would you sleep overnight and it would recharge overnight, presumably, or is it longer than that? Because I don't know what the voltage is at a marina.
So loaded statement, just like electric cars, there's different levels of level 2 charging, and then there's DC fast charging. In San Francisco Bay, there's a handful of those Aqua Superpower fast chargers. I think there's 2 or 3 of them there. So if you had a boat with fast charging, you would plug in, and it's about an hour and a half. These boats don't have super high C ratings. Some of them don't even have cooling systems because of that, which is pretty crazy. But it's usually like 1.5 C. So the DC fast chargers are at 75 kilowatts. Those get put in at marinas that have 3-phase power. That company will cover the cost. And usually there's some buy-in from the utility. They cover make-ready costs. And that DC charger gets put in. And the goal is to, just like electric car chargers, attract the foot traffic there. Now people come and stop and eat at your restaurant for an hour and a half. But typically, if you have a sit-down meal, it's sufficient time on a fast charger.
And are there resources to find? So, we got a better route planner or Google Maps. So is there any resources to tell you where these chargers are located? Or you got to scout that out ahead of time, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're in the innovator stages right now, man. There is a guy that is making a app for it, just like PlugShare. And I can't name it right now, but I'm going to see it. So like right now you just have to know, but every single customer that takes delivery right now, they are very aware. We're before early adopter stages. And there's even some people who say, hey, I want to buy a boat, but I need a charging station here, because this is a trip we do from Annapolis to St. Michael's every other weekend. And so I will pursue a restaurant, a marina, anybody on the water that's an amenity. I will pursue them and engage with them and say, hey, you need a fast charger. This company will pay for it. And they'll do a rev share model, and it's free. But some of these people, just like the automotive world, are so narrow-minded and so stuck in their ways, they don't want free charging stations. And the ironic part is I dealt with that when I was at Tesla trying to give away charging stations for the destination charging program. It was terrible.
Oh,
Yeah, you
interesting.
almost need to find these high volume spots where you can reliably rent out the asset, have the demand. You almost need to provide the demand in order to kind of build something. I imagine it would be seasonal in a lot of places. There's just so many things that could be amazing about it, but so many extra obstacles, even more so than an EV. And I assume all the same rules apply that you're not really boating out in the wintertime, Jace, right? Like we are on the Great Lakes.
Well, it's
But
funny you just said that. So that was where my next question was going to go. And I, just out of curiosity, you may not know because I don't think you guys deal with. But what's winterization like on a EV boat? Is that something that is less entailed than a gas boat?
Yeah, it kind of doesn't exist with most of our boats. So like that flux powered Scout I was telling you about, it's got ethylene glycol system in the powertrain, but it's closed loop. So there's no seawater coming through or anything. And so there's nothing to winterize. Like pull your drain plug, clean it off and make sure there's no standing water and put a cover on it, put maybe a trickle charger on the 12 volt, will turn off all your breakers to get rid of your parasitic loads. Some of our boats do have a seawater intake system, and you would drain that and make sure there's nothing in it. Yeah. And then some of the boats actually have like an outdrive or a stern drive, like that Ingenuity, the party barge. It's got a Mercury Bravo 3 outdrive. So you do your, once a year oil change, maybe twice a year. But like that is the biggest, that's the maintenance on an electric boat. And there's obviously going to be other things that go wrong that are regular boat stuff. But when it's very rare that we do electrical, like high voltage electrical repairs. We've replaced a radio and speakers and USB ports and all that stuff's just going to be nature of boating. But the biggest, maintenance headache is usually the gas engine and fuel filters and doing tune-ups and, all the other headaches that come with it. Or you get ethanol in your fuel or water in your fuel. And there's so many of those times that it's plagued by, it's not even a maintenance issue. It's just a matter of fact.
I'm assuming we're a little early, but is there any market for boat rehab, where we're making gas boats into electric boats?
So that's actually been happening for a while in the low horsepower settings, 1 to 5 to 10 horsepower. That's a big part of our business. We don't do big sales volume yet, so our margins aren't great. But my service, when we're doing service work and doing retrofits, we've got decent margins in the labor. And so that's something we're going to lean into. And I've got to get a huge shop and a ton of tooling and stuff. But we do a good amount of those. And sometimes they're cost prohibitive. If you wanted 150 horsepower and enough range for an average day, it's a $50,000 retrofit. 30 horsepower is around $20,000 or so. But like 5 to 10 horsepower, it's only like $10,000, $15,000. It's not too crazy. But I tell people, and we've done, I don't know, a dozen or so of them. But it's like, hey, if you buy a boat with a gas engine, sell the gas engine, put it towards it, or wait for your gas engine to blow. And instead of rebuilding that, just put it towards an electric motor. And purchase price, is one part of it, but like life cycle cost is the other. But also like the time and headache that comes into it. You're not going to be out there, sitting there cranking it, hoping it's going to start first time in the winter. As long as your 12 volt's good. Because we still get plagued by 12 volt issues.
I'm sure. Yeah.
When people go to buy boats, how does financing work? Because is it very much like the automotive business? Is it, when I think of like some of these big $100,000 and $200,000 price tags, I kind of almost think about RVing, and in RVs you can get these really long
20-year loans.
Right. So where does electrified boats, where does that fall into it? Or is it so new that banks are even tough to lend with? Or how does that work?
So most banks, just like early on in the automotive world, wouldn't touch them. Insurance was scared of them, but that's not an issue anymore. I've got 3 or 4 banks we can utilize for financing, but you can do 10, 20, and even 30-year loans. And sometimes if it's a business play and it's a charter boat, you'll want to finance that thing as long as possible and put money to work elsewhere. If you're financing at 6-7%, but a lot of it, some people live on them. If you've got a bigger trawler that's got a cabin on it, you could live on it. That could be your residence. So you could justify it those ways. But yeah, financing and insurance is easy now, but it's pretty common to have a 20-year loan on a boat. So, call it $150,000 is $1,200 to $1,500 a month loan. But when you stretch it out that far, a lot of these people that rent their boats out, they'll rent it a couple times a month, call it 2 to 3 times at $200 to $300 an hour. You rent it out for 3 rentals, and now it pays for your monthly boat payment. And also, you just attached it to a business, and now the whole thing's a tax write-off. So it doesn't have to make a ton of money. It just can't cost you a ton of money.
Yeah, I can tell you when I was out in Amsterdam and we took canal cruises, which just beg for this type of thing where you're going back to the same spot, you get yourself a charger there. In between, you're charging up, just kind of getting what you can, where you can. There's not a lot of, waves. You're trying to keep those canals nice anyway. One of the biggest thing is the noise from them, and to be able to have it be that quiet through the canals would be amazing. I mean, I think the challenge is trying to find the market and where it is, and there's got to be places like that out here where we have like Foster City, Alameda, like I said, the Sacramento Delta, Tahoe. I would think there's got to be these places. How do you, from your business perspective, and you're actually, I know you said early on that you kind of started out in Southern California, but now you're back east, right? And how did you end up out there, and how's the boat market different? Because I think California, I used to live in Newport Beach, Costa Mesa. There's so many places, out there, and so many places up here. Talk about, like, how do you find the markets? How did you end up back east? Is east totally different than Midwest where Jace is, and out here in California? Talk a bit about that market.
So boating is so territorial, even as much as the lake that you're on. You could have a lake right here and a bay right here, and it's, Pontoon City right here, but they'd never step foot in this huge bay. And it's crazy. And this one might be like Wakeboard City, and everybody hates wakeboards and jet skis. And then this one is electric only, and there's electric bass fishermen out there, which is common in Georgia and Maryland and parts of Virginia. So it is very territorial, depending on the boats. And you can go to any marina and really get the vibe of what's popular in the area. Oh, there's nothing but sailboats here. Oh, there's, only power boats here. You might be in the Midwest or, in Tennessee, Kentucky, wherever. And there's these $500,000 houseboats that can sleep 10 people on them with a helicopter pad on it. You'd never see that on a coastal city. You might see some floating homes, but it's very much territorial. I moved back. I bounced around a bit. So when I started working for Tesla, I was supposed to go to San Diego. It wasn't ready yet. I went to Orange County. I opened the Costa Mesa store in 2012 off of Pullman. I was there for like a couple months, and then they said, hey, we need help in Fremont. I went up to Fremont to work for 6 months. And then I went back to San Diego, realized I couldn't afford it, and then moved back to the East Coast.
We got EV Geek joining us. I was like, man, we got Tesla Owners Club Arkansas. And I'm like, that's got to be the EV Geek guys. Yeah, there we go. Same thing with just flipping back. I do that all the time with mine. Would turn down for what my Bow Family EV, where I'm on the wrong channel one. But Arkansas, man, tell us about Arkansas. What's the market down there? We got the Mississippi River, I believe. When I drove from Tennessee back out to California, there was the Mississippi River that I went across, the Colorado River that I went across. Yeah, I mean, chime in with what the boating world is like in Arkansas, but how are electric boats for those types? Is that too much flow when you're talking about like a Mississippi or or the Missouri or the Colorado? If you try to put electrified boats there, is that too much?
Honestly, it's kind of just planning ahead, man. If you know the waterway that you're on and there's going to be a 6-7 mile an hour current coming back, if you're in one of those slow cocktail boats, you might not be moving. But if you're in a faster boat, now you're going to consume 1.5 times the energy. Normally at a 5 mile an hour speed, you'd have 12 miles of range, but now you're not moving. So now you're using just as much energy to go half the speed. You mentioned the right waterways for these, and you mentioned Alameda. Funny enough, there's a boat rental company there, and she owns Bay Boats. It's BAE Boats, but she's got a bunch of those cocktail boats, and that's what they're perfect for. They stay on protected waters. They're low speed, low liability. If somebody hits something, it's not going to cause a ton of damage. So those low speed cruisers are pretty great for rental operations, as long as it's a protected bay. You're not going to drop those in a huge bay or somewhere that gets too rough.
I drank that Pepsi too fast.
I hate when that happens.
No, that's really cool though. But I think, it seems like it's just like in boating world in general, like whatever lake you're on will depend upon what type of boats you see the most on said lake. Like my parents are on an inland lake in Michigan, and we could take our speedboat there, but it's too shallow, and it's just not the perfect sort of thing for it. So but then where we have Sandusky, which is a huge boating land. We have all sorts of different kinds of boats that go back and forth to the islands, and I still think that like the majority of the what I'm hearing from you would work at Sandusky. Like the islands are not that far away, and I feel like people could make this work.
Yeah, is that Put-in Bay? I think I've heard of it. Yeah, everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is the perfect waterway." Everyone just hangs out all day long.
Literally, Put-in Bay would be insane. Like we have to get an electric boat up at Put-in Bay sometime, because growing up here in Cleveland, all of my family lived and worked in Put-in Bay. My stepdad's brother is the yacht club owner of Put-in Bay Yacht Club. I mean, that's like what he runs the whole shebang, and it would be perfect. It'd be perfect.
The crazy part is like we have a list of like we started a list. It was kind of funny. It's like all the perfect waterways for these. We stopped at like 180 because like there's so many places that are perfect. It's like high net worth, local boating market, good amount of marina slips or houses on the water that have electricity at the docks. There's like 1,000 of them right now. I could open up 100 locations and still not have the market tapped. It's crazy. So I'm going to try to raise some capital and get into some of the big markets that are out there, because there's so many that are perfect for it, whether it's rentals or to have a dealership at. And we're at the early stages of this, man. I'm the only one in the country doing this, which is crazy to say in a market with this much opportunity. Talking multi-billion-dollar opportunity 10 years from now.
I mean, even the city of Cleveland is putting in a bunch of marinas right now along the river that they're working towards, making the lakefront usable for Cleveland, which has kind of been, looked away from for a while. It's kind of not happened. So, they're really looking at ways to make it usable, and they're adding a ton of slips and a ton of things. And every marina that I've been in Sandusky has 50 amp run to it, or something similar to every single boat in that marina. And there's marinas with hundreds and hundreds of slips. So I think there's and we don't have a ton. We're not lake heavy here in Northeast Ohio. We have the Great Lakes, obviously, but we don't have like Chautauqua or anything like Michigan has a ton of inland lakes. We just don't really have that here. But even where our little lakes that we do have, I can think of so many people that could use this. They've got their tiki bars out there on the edge of the dock, and the electrics run there. There's electric, so they can easily plug in the boat. There's a lot of them have like the little boat garages where they'll build in, and then up in the little thing on top, the little patio on top, if you will. So yeah, I mean, I could just think of so many places that this would. I see it taking off. I really do. It's gonna happen. It's just it's the same thing as EVs, right? Getting it butts and seats and showing people that it will work for the vast majority, if not all the time, if they're boating. It's just convincing them, right?
That's it. And it's awareness. It's not even convincing. Like I have a salesman that I'm training. It's like, we don't sell, we educate. Like if this person is not a good fit, we do not want them buying a boat. And if somebody has the wrong expectations, I will not sell it to them, because they're going to be, I don't need them stuck on the news because they thought they were going to do, 100-mile days every day. Like we need to be very careful who we sell to right now. And I've not sold more boats than I've sold because of that. And it's like, oh yeah, I want to go, tubing for, 6 hours. That's what we do. It's like, no, not for you. We don't have the energy density. And like, there's bigger wake boats that have massive batteries. We actually even have a hybrid wakeboarding boat coming out next year from Genesis Marine.
I was going to ask if hybrid is that because obviously we see E-Rev and all these things, is that something that's going on with boating as well?
Not at all. So you only see it on the huge yachts and stuff. They've got like diesel gen sets, like backup generators. But in terms of the consumer market, that hybrid boat from Genesis, they will be the first one, and it's coming out next year. But it'll be a wake boat, and it's just like the Chevy Volt style, where it's a gas generator that runs in the background. And it can do, I think, 20, 30 kilowatts. It's a good amount of power. No, that was 20 kilowatts was eco mode. So he's got another level to step it up. But you got to think too, in terms of wakeboarding, like you're using a ton of energy. You're not doing that 8 hours a day, unless you've got 15 people that want an hour a piece. Like that's not a normal use case. And you have to think of the amount of time you're towing versus slowing down, pulling people. They're swapping out, anchored out at a cove somewhere, do some more. So like 2 to 4 hours of tow time, of water sports time is a ton. And we've got boats that can do that, which is exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So as we go from kind of one emerging technology and kind of talk about another emerging technology with kind of my Robotaxi experience here, before we kind of transition to that, like any kind of last minute nuggets that you want to share and kind of talk about for people, like who's the ones that should be going to the website and reaching out, and just kind of share the best places to reach you. I know we showed the YouTube channel, the website, but plug where you're at.
Yeah, man. Facebook, Erick Pinzon Jr. On Instagram, I'm the Electric Boat Dude. I tell everybody like, hey, there's a good chance you're not a boat buyer, but if you could spread the word with someone that might be, whether it's a sailboat owner, powerboat owner, an electric car owner. So who would think this stuff is cool? Because awareness is the biggest challenge right now, and they are expensive. They're sometimes double the price. So you've got to be not price sensitive, and everybody I know is. So it's like, who's the wealthiest people in your networks that might be that early adopter guy? And a lot of times it's the first Tesla owner that you ever met, who was those early adopters 10 years ago. And that's who's buying our boats right now.
I could totally see us do it if we were just a little bit higher in the income, I could see us in 5 years, doing that. I didn't expect that we would have bought our Ego lawnmower. We had a Skag and we loved it. It was great, and it was new. But we sold our Skag for $500 less than we bought it 5 years ago, and we got a great deal on the Ego, and we did it. So, I think it's all about timing in some cases too. But real quick before we move on, though, Erick, you're a Lightning owner too, right? So you've owned. Can you talk about that just real quick, briefly, how that's worked for you and how your Lightning has been?
So I've owned like 36 plug-in cars. At one point, I had a dozen plug-in cars on Turo. I've owned 20 Teslas. I had a Rivian before this, and now I have the Lightning. It tows more days than it doesn't. It's at 52,000 miles. I've done a set of tires, wiper blades, and a cabin air filter. It is a monster. We have a diesel vehicle that my business partner has, and they use mine 99% of the time because it tows better. It's pretty awesome.
Awesome. I love that.
What got you from Rivian to Lightning? Because they're so different,
So I bought and sold at the perfect time for the Rivian. It didn't cost me any money, but also the Rivian was too nice of a work truck. My employees drive my truck just as much, if not more, than I do, and the parts were just too expensive. I did a lift gate and almost to like a unibody replacement after a tiny collision, and it was like my eye opener. It's like, hey, this might be a good time to sell. And then my number was coming up for the Ford Lightning, so I'm upside down in that for the foreseeable future. Hopefully a Silverado EV is coming next. We need more range for some of our long distance trips. But again, it's the once every 2 to 3 months. It's not every day. That's where the Lightning's perfect. But it's a workhorse though, man. We love it.
This is where we definitely got to get you back again when Martin is here, because that's right up his alley, talking about towing, talking about boating, all of this stuff. I know he'd love to chat and have some great questions for you. But stick with us, because I'd love to hear just your thoughts. You've got your background in EVs in general, and you've been with Tesla, and you've had all the different vehicles and boats, and you've done Toro. This is kind of a Toro adjacent. I mean, it's not the same thing, but it's, when you don't have your primary vehicle, what are you going to use? And so I'm definitely curious to hear Jace's thoughts on these. Like we've had kind of back and forth, and we typically come at these from different perspectives. I'm an absolute dork on this stuff, and I get so excited about this kind of technology. And when the Model Y came out, I was really fortunate. One of the very first people to drive it and do the FSD, and I was blown away. I was just blown away with how smooth it was and how well it drove. And then just last night, I was able to get into the group that does the Robotaxi. And so California is a bit of an interesting place, and you've got to have a safety driver behind the wheel. And so it kind of takes away a little bit of, that's not the right one. A little bit of the kind of excitement you can see. I decided like, hey, let's Robotaxi my daughter to school today. So every day I bring Avery, my daughter, to school, and we have the lightning right behind us here in the picture, and we're like, you know what? What's an excuse to Robotaxi something? We're going to get Avery to school. We're going to see how it does, because this is something that we do every morning. Let's compare it, and it pulls up, and there's a driver in the seat, and that's a little anticlimactic, It's his hands are kind of hovering on the wheel. He's not really touching it. The drive is pretty much FSD. But there's just a little bit of the magic is lost when you've got the driver in that position, sadly. But I see this very much, like you're saying, with your industry, it's very much emerging. It's very much new. It will not look like this a year from now, 2 years from now. It'll continuously improve. And there will be a day where just a driverless car will come up to you. And arguably it could do that in many cases today, but it can't do it nearly at the percentage of reliability to pull it off just yet. So, yeah, this was an interesting morning. We took and called it over. I'll kind of show the video that I posted earlier, kind of made a little quick short about it. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to post the full video. So after this, I'll be editing. We'll see how long it takes me to edit the video. So stay tuned for that. But this is the video that I posted earlier today. So, yeah, that was kind of just a little micro experience. It comes up on the app. It pulls up the door. It says to open the door. And you get inside, and there's a little start button that you press, and you got to be seat belted in. There is that safety driver there, and then it's and then we compared it. I compared it. I've got a screenshot that I'll show on the full video where it was basically $10 to do the trip to the school. I compared it to Uber, and it was like $12 to Uber, so slightly less, but not a game changer. So it's one of those things that. It took a less efficient route. Obviously, when your neighborhood, the traffic patterns, it probably took about 5 to 7 minutes longer for that drive. And so I kind of show all of that. It was really smooth for the most part. There was one place coming up it was a green light, but the traffic on the opposite end of the intersection was stopped. And so it was kind of progressing at the normal speed. And then it realized, oh, crap. Traffic is completely stopped at the intersection, and it wanted to stop before it got into the intersection. And so it kind of had a very abrupt stop. And that was the only kind of harsh moment, was it trying to figure out, do I cross into the intersection? Oh, it doesn't look like I can make it fully across. I don't want to be stuck in it. I better stop before. And other than that, though, it was really smooth. And then there's a point where you can kind of press the button and tell it, like, as we approach the school, it didn't know to go into the parking lot and go into the pickup line, for example, right? It's not that intelligent. So I basically told it, go ahead and pull over. And it was smart enough to avoid the bus lane, or it's just random luck. And it stopped in an area of the side just before the bus lane. So, yeah, and then my daughter got out, gave her a hug, and then I let it drive off, and then I called it back again. And then I crossed the street there and got right back into it, and it took me home. So, yeah, that whole experience will be posted tomorrow. But I love it, not because it's ready to go today, but I love it because I think about as I age, or as my parents age, and they get to a point where, maybe they can't drive at night anymore. Like my mom doesn't really drive at night. The vision, night blindness is kind of there. Or as people get to a point where they have to rely typically on an Uber, or they have to rely on a paratransit or a support or a retirement home bus, here is a bit of possible freedom and autonomy. And so that really kind of just blew me away. And this is the kind of perspective from the back seat. It pretty much looks like a basic Model Y experience, man. You would, the only difference is that the driver's hands aren't on the wheel, but he's ready at all times to take over. And then on the screen, it kind of shows you your route, and you can watch YouTube and different things. And then the main screen has the visualization. So, like, give me your thoughts, guys. Like, who wants to start off? Like, what is your take on the Robotaxi?
Go ahead, Eric.
So I was driving autopilot in 2014 when it first came out. I drove an autopilot 2.0, which was like a drunk teenager. It was a step back when the Model X came out. That was terrifying. And so FSD started coming out and became a thing. 18, 19, it got a lot better. And it got to the point where it's damn good. And you mentioned it's like we're in the early stages of this, and it always reminds me of a quote. And it's like, don't let perfection be the enemy. Don't let perfection be the enemy of good. And it's like we've got to keep it's good enough right now, and it's not perfect, but compared to the average driver that's distracted on their phone, it's a hell of a lot better. And Tesla proves that with analytics from traffic per accident, car accidents per mile. Sorry. So I'm a big fan of it, even though it's not perfect. It's going to do better than the person texting that gets in car accidents and kills people every day. So I love the way it's going. There's obviously, there needs to be some control around it, and we can't be too aggressive. But I'm a firm believer in it. I ride a motorcycle too, so I see how many people are texting, and it's half, if not more. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, it is really bad. Yeah, I agree with you. I think those parts of the business aspect are super exciting. I'm not sure I fully am convinced on Tesla's business model within FSD and how they see it happening. It's interesting to me. I think there's a lot of there. We could go into many layers on why Waymo is going to work out versus Zoox versus FSD versus so many things, right? But in general, I agree with you, Chris. I think the technology is exciting. I think it's what we it's what we need. I have a different perspective living in Ohio. I don't foresee robotaxis hitting us, right? Especially being in the suburbs, I don't see us being focused on per se. I see big cities really where that takes off initially. Maybe it will trickle our way eventually. And that's where Tesla, I think, is sort of working on that half of the market more so than maybe somebody like Waymo or Zoox, where they're really focusing on cities. And so, yeah, I think it's just going to be fascinating to see where it all goes. And I don't want to get into like the OEM side of like FSD, but I always will say I think it's fascinating that no OEM, not one single one, has chosen to license FSD. I think there's reasons behind that.
They also never wanted to license Tesla supercharging.
Yep, I totally agree with that. I think this one's a little different when it comes down to legalities and all those sorts of things. Yeah. I think Ford and the other OEMs are very cautious, particularly when it comes to this subject. I also don't think that they view it as a marketable and ROI filled opportunity, right? I think they, at least as of right now, they don't see the market for it making money. So I think there's so many layers to it, but I think in general, like you said, I think it's good. I think it is interesting to see the nuances and how it's all happening with Texas. Are they going back to the driver's seat? Are they not? Are they, it's those little like things that are, and Tesla's so like, they do it brilliantly, right? The way they kind of smoke and mirror some things. We didn't really know, like Tesla said, oh, well, we put the drivers back in the driver's seat for highway drives only, right? But it happened to be the same day that the Texas law also changed, right? So like, you never really know really what the truth is. But that's, I think all businesses and companies do that to a certain extent. Tesla's not alone in that, certainly. I think they push it a little further than some of the others, but the others have been around forever. They've dealt with kind of the goods and the bads of doing that, right? Of maybe pushing it too far in the past. I don't know about
that. There hasn't been much innovation in the automotive world for a long time. It's been very boring.
It's true, but that's what I mean. A lot of these big companies have been around for so long that they were there when Henry Ford was pushing. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
They were, and maybe at some point they got their toes stepped on because some legal person said, "Oh, you can't do that." And it, being a big company, that I almost swore that stuff sticks. That shit sticks. It really does.
So it's their legal threshold, their risk tolerance. And you can tell getting into any vehicle compared to a Tesla. It's like, I can't use the keyboard while I'm typing my nav, even though there's a passenger in the seat. Like, you can tell there's someone sitting here, but like, it's run by lawyers, and Tesla's like the opposite. It's like, no, this is safe enough. Go ahead. We don't care. Go ahead and crash. This is your fault. And they'd rather fight it in court than deal with, headline news because somebody died.
And as we've, right. And as we've seen recently, I mean, that was pretty crazy too, that family hired hacker to access data. That's insane to me. That is something I don't think you'd ever see from Ford or, I mean, you're just never going to see that. So that's just, it's a different way of doing things. I think some people like it. Some people hate it. Some people kind of have mixed feelings. I think I'm kind of in that group where I like you, Chris. I love new technology. I love SpaceX. The way Tesla that goes about things, I don't always love, but there's things about Tesla that I love too. So, it's a tricky spot sometimes to be in. And I think some people feel the exact same way about Elon in general, right?
I look at it a couple different ways. I think in 10 years, I could look back with my daughter and be like, you were the first. This thing that could be a ubiquitous technology. And I don't know for a fact, but I would guess that she might be the first student in all of certainly my city, my school district, maybe my county. I don't know how, first student to take a Robotaxi to school. And in a practical way, as we have a very complex scenario here where, my wife is a school teacher, so her hours overlap. It's very hard for her to bring and pick up kids when she herself, as a teacher, has to be there before the kids and after the kids, right? It is an interesting thing for myself having a 9 to 5 where I can't and I'm a couple cities away, and we have a bus system. But how do we feel about our new end of junior high daughter going onto a bus system, which in our case, there isn't a direct bus. The whole school bus thing has gone away. There are no local school buses that bring our daughter. In fact, our school district, because of the weird ways the boundaries are drawn, we are in the city of Hayward, but our schools are in the Union City School District and what's called the New Haven School District. Now, if I just go a block to the left, I'm in the Hayward School District, but it's just the way the lines are drawn. And so, the school is a couple miles away. It sounds
like Cali problems is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah,
but okay, keep going. No, I'm just kidding with you, but there's a little Cali stuff going on there, but okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when we were looking at real estate and properties, that's one of the benefits to this home is that it's in the cheaper city of Hayward, but within the better school district. That's why this particular spot was a really attractive spot. And so that was so in our scenario, we've been racking our brains, and we've got a thing where, every morning I bring my daughter to school, but then in the afternoon, it's a mess. It's my wife 3 days a week goes and picks her up, and then they have to go back to her school, 2 cities over, one city over, I guess. And then on 1 day a week, which is an early day, our neighbor helps us and brings her home. And then on Fridays, which is an early day for my son has special needs, and he goes to a school all the way down in San Jose, an hour away. And so Friday is his early day. So I've got to be home for him on Fridays. And that's the day that I pick her up. But imagine if my wife had the Model Y and she's at the school 1 city away, almost on the same, it's Alvarado Niles, for anybody that knows the Bay Area and the Union City area. And Alvarado Niles goes into the city of Niles, which is where my wife is a school teacher at Niles Elementary. And so she could literally, have the Tesla go over and pick up my daughter autonomously and then drive her back. Now, that's not where we are today. But this scenario 10 years from now has a real practical purpose. So we talked earlier about the elderly, and then you've got, Eric, with your former involvement with Turo. I'm kind of interested to hear what you would think, like from a Turo perspective, if you have a fleet of 6, 7 things that are running FSD, and it gets to that point of technology that you can trust it, when you're not Toroing it, would you be Robotaxiing it? And would you have this parking lot all night long? Your car is just taken off without at any point being called and on the network, as a Turo operator. I mean, I've given you my perspective as a parent and how that might go, but as a business person, which Elon has talked about that, what are your hesitations? What are your excitements? And again, I don't think we're there now. Imagine 10 years down the road though.
Yeah. As sketchy or questionable as FSD is, it's still better than the average Turo renter. With how many accidents I dealt with, like it blew me away.
Yeah, you
how
follow
many
Ethan
accidents
too, don't you? Have you seen Ethan's stories? Oh my god,
we've had Ethan on the podcast, man, and he had a whole scenario with like
Sergio. I think has stories too. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, Todd didn't do Turo. He's just been doing the ride shares. But yeah, we've heard crazy stories, man.
Yeah, so I'd be all about it. And a lot of times with Turo, it comes down to your revenue per hour that you put into it, because there's some people that think they're doing a great job, but they're spending way too much time in their business. And you're like, cool, you made $15 an hour. But if you can automate a ton of that and, get someone to handle your cleaning, and then, now you're not even dealing with pickups and drop-offs, it's like, now what does your value go to? So it can be exponential, man. It's going to be a game changer once it's dialed in.
Yeah, I think that'll be the fun thing, is just to see how it evolves. I think it's going to have to navigate a lot of politics. I think the thing too is that I think if Eric, you were to accidentally run into my child as a human, I could forgive you, right? I could know that there was an accident there, and I could work through that grief and know that as a man to a man, that if there was a tragic accident involved, I think I could move past that easier than a robotic car by a multi-trillion, perhaps certainly multi-billion, but $1 trillion company run by this person that's already got a lot of different aspects to them that can be difficult to figure out. Whether that's Bezos, whether that's Musk, whether that's any corporation, I think there is something. Think of Boeing, right? Whenever there's anything with a Boeing, everybody's going to make jokes about it. You demonize it, right? There is something about a corporation that is different, and it has to be perfect. It cannot fail. It cannot run over somebody. It cannot crash and be the cause of it. Even now, when vehicles have problems, there's always Tesla is in the headlines, whether they're at fault or not, whether the fire started with them or not, right? And now imagine in this scenario. So I think one of the big leaps that they're going to have to figure out, this is, my opinion is, if you're going to do FSD for robotaxis, obviously Tesla is responsible when it's a robotaxi because it's their robotaxi. But what about when it's just my FSD as a personal user? Why are they not responsible for that as well? If I'm using that product correctly as designed, and I'm not doing anything on my behalf to trick the sensors or have modified my vehicle in any way, if it's being used as intended, I don't believe I should be responsible if it gets into an accident. I believe that should be part of my subscription or what I sign up for, or maybe.
Well, and we just saw that in the recent case. I mean, where the man was in an accident. I believe he was drinking. He was cut off at a bar beforehand and still crashed and crashed. And the court still found Tesla, what was it, like 33% liable. I mean, and it wasn't really due. It was mainly due to their hiding of data, right? And they're not really being forthcoming with maybe what data that they had or they didn't know they had, they said at the time. And I think, and I think you're right, Chris. They're going to have to learn to play, in my opinion, I've said this a lot of times, in my opinion, Tesla has to learn to play the game a little bit better. Like, they need to learn to play the political game. They need to learn to play that it's good to have friends in politics. I know it's maybe not the game that we all want, right? But it's like the game that they have to play. And Elon's just not really good at that. That's just not his forte. He doesn't want to kiss anybody's ass. And I get why. Like, I get it. It makes sense, but like, I see big money coming into Zoox. I see big money coming into Waymo. How is Tesla going to differentiate themselves from these robotaxi networks that are popping up that are actual robotaxi networks? Like, Waymo has an actual they don't have a driver in, there's no safety driver, period. So, and when those companies partner, which they're going to do because they're that type of a company, they're owned by Google, they're going to partner with, Lyft, they're going to partner with Uber, as we see already happening. How is Tesla going to differentiate themselves from those companies? That's my biggest question on their business. What is going to differentiate Tesla from somebody downloading the Uber app and having the choice of ordering a Zoox and a Waymo and whoever else pops up? Why would they download the Tesla app unless they're a Tesla owner? Why would they download the Tesla app?
Yeah, I think I think there's going to be a lot of interesting partnerships out there. I think Waymo is going to go about it their way. I think the partnership with Lucid and Uber could evolve into some things there. They're doing some testing potentially out in Nevada. Zoox, they're actually made right here in Hayward, where I live. I'm like surrounded by this stuff, man, and I'm just so fascinated by it. And
that's why I think Tesla's got a partner. Like, they're going to have to find partners, but that's why I think they need to play the game a little bit better, is to find those partners, because those partners don't see the world the way Tesla sees it, especially legally.
I think you can sum up Elon's ethos in his whole way that he approached taking over Twitter, when he was talking to the advertisers and he was like, GF,
sorry,
right? And look, the 12-year-old in me finds that hilarious. Okay. And the person who grew up listening to Rage Against the Machine and grew up listening to like Fight the Power type music, right? I'm all about sticking it to the man. I'm all about that kind of vibe. But then you've also got to grow up at some point, and you've got to realize that there are a lot of people in that you're responsible for as a leader. And there are a lot of ways to get things done. And I don't want you to completely bow down to the man, but I want you to learn. There's a great quote, man, by Ice-T, one of my favorite guys ever from my 80s childhood, who made that transition and, was in Law and Order. And there was an interview with him. And they talked about, did people like him or Ice Cube, did they sell out? And Ice-T had this great quote, and he's like, "My job is to infiltrate the system and take it over." And
I'm like, go,
dude. I'm like, sick. You can now. Elon has infiltrated the system, and by force of will, he's taken over some things. But the system is still bigger than him. And you can see what's going on with sales in Europe. You can see what happened with Doge. You cannot take it. The proper way to take it over is subtly. It's tactfully. It's skillfully. I don't know that he has the interpersonal skills to do that. He needs to put people around him that can help him navigate that, because he's too powerful. He's too important. He can change the world if he does it right. But his specialness that makes him so incredible and visionary, like so many geniuses that end up in a hotel room peeing in jars, right? Like, he's got that part of him too, man. And I think it holds it back.
A lot of it reminds me in customer service about the customer's always right. And I'm a firm believer that is not true. And I probably still have the record, but back in the day, Tesla used to buy back cars. And the rule was you weren't allowed to buy another one for a year. And we'd give them full price. And it's like, hey, you're not worth our time. We have people lined up to buy these things. And then back in 2012, 13, I used to buy back cars. And they'd be like, oh, my Bentley does this. My Bentley does this. It's like, sure, go get a Bentley. Like, this isn't the car for you. We've got thousands of people lined up for this thing. And like, when you did that, it was like this checkmate. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, fine. And like, sometimes they would take it, but a lot of times it's like, wow, okay, let me like come back to reality. And I'm not going to walk in with my 38 complaints that are BS, So I don't know. I go both ways on it, but very much like customer isn't always right.
Electrified overlanding. He's feeling me on the Rage, man. I just one of the greatest songs ever made, man. It's and so I honestly, you talk about partnering, Jace, and I think what's unique about Tesla is they are their own partner. Because what I think, and maybe look at me, I'm no expert at this, so please, guys, chime in the comments and let me know if I'm way off here or if I'm just too much of a fan.
None of us, we don't know. We can't predict the future. Who the heck knows what's going to happen? I mean, we all could be wrong. We all could be right at the same time. We don't know.
I think what's unique about Tesla, though, is that they're taking this from the standpoint of AI and Optimus, and there are overlaps. There are partnerships within their own, ecosphere. And so some of the same things that make FSD work will be the same things that make Optimus work, will be the same things that make Robotaxi work. And there are so many AI intelligence things that are overlapping here that I think they start to complement each other and feedback on each other and help each other. Now, if it doesn't work, if it turns out that it can't just be camera and vision only, and it's got to be more, then I think they're going to have to do a strong pivot and eat crow on that. But I think they are trying everything, because I think the same vision only is their plan for Optimus, and their same world of intelligence is all feeding into this incredible, database of AI. And
yeah, I think it's a huge risk. I really do. I mean, I think we don't see many companies, for better or for worse, right, feeling the same way about these things that Tesla does in many different ways, right? Like not just FSD, there's AI, there's all these Optimus, right? So yeah, it's just that's the interesting part about Tesla is you have that eccentric billionaire at the top, right? Where that doesn't exist a lot anymore. You just don't see that because all these, look at Ford. Like Bill Ford is not running day-to-day operations at Ford and doing it the way in which that he sees it, and nobody. He has built, people around him Bill Ford's a huge EV guy. He's like a huge environmentalist, like huge, one of the biggest I've ever met and talked to in my life. He loves EVs. He wants this to succeed, but he also knows that there's a business there, and there's a lot of different moving parts behind the scenes that make all this happen when you talk lobbying and, all the money. And so it's fascinating. I mean, we just saw it today too. Like, they had a big AI conference and they didn't even invite Elon. Like it's just the things that it's that political maneuvering though, where that's why, in my opinion, Elon has to learn to play the game better because he can't not get invited to the Biden EV summit and then at the same time not get invited to the Trump AI summit, right? Like it
goes both ways.
It goes both ways. It absolutely does. And so that's where you have to just learn that, like you said, Chris, there's not leaders, but there's people that are more powerful than you when it comes to certain things, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to follow this stuff. I do think it's going to take time to perfect and get right. I think they're going about it the right way. They're doing these cities like Austin. They're doing the Bay Area. The safety driver thing doesn't bother me. Some people it does, but when Waymo came out here, that's how those first Waymo rides were. And they had safety drivers as well, and that took I don't know how long, a year or two, for them to go away.
I think what from like what I see that people get upset with is the fanboys, right? Like we just see the Tesla fanboys say like, well, they're way ahead of Waymo, or like they're way, and like, oh, it's not a safety driver. He's not actually, got his hands on the button, whatever. There's so much like misinformation that like, honestly, I don't think anybody knows what the truth is, to be honest with you. And Tesla doesn't really do a great job of just being like, this is the truth. Like moving of the safety driver. We don't really know. Was it due to the highway? Was it due to, regulations changing? Maybe it was both. We don't really know. We'll probably never really know. But, it's so I think that's the issue that I think a lot of people have, at least on the social media aspect of it, is that we see the Tesla fanboys like in the quote unquote cult, like nobody's good. Everybody sucks compared to Tesla. Like, and I think that's where you build like this anti-cult mentality, right? Tesla Q. I think that's
I think that it'll be interesting to see them evolve as a company too, because they are certainly not leading when it comes to charging. When you look at suspension, there's these Chinese cars, man, that they have going over like moguls, and they are just, you could put champagne glasses and those things are rock solid. Tesla just now with the Model Y, whatever that's called, right?
Yeah.
I think it says Y on the back. Yeah, the extended Y. Their seats, you notice how different their seats are now. They're very much adjusting to the Chinese market. It's got like the extra thigh support, the back seat, whatever that culture is in China, man. If you ever want to have a fascinating watch, find Wheels Boy on YouTube. Wheels Boy is I'm guessing an expat American. He speaks perfect English. He looks like some white guy that apparently made his way to China, and he makes brilliant content on Chinese EVs, man. I cannot get enough of this. And he'll go through and he talks about the Chinese cars, and they love their back seats. And it's really tailored around the backseat experience. And you really see that with the Model Y.
Yeah.
You see how it's totally changed, right? But they're not bringing that experience so far to the United States because he doesn't feel like the market is there for it or needs it. And they've always said like the best part is no part and simplicity. But the Chinese market kind of wants some of that complexity. It wants those moving pieces and luxury appointments. And so it'll be interesting to see how they pivot and adjust. They clearly will if forced to. And so he's a stubborn person, and a part of me really appreciates it. And I think if not for him, I don't think Ford is doing anything they're doing today if not for Elon first getting out there and by force of will making these electric vehicles happen.
There's no doubt. I mean, I don't care how much you dislike Elon or how much you hate Elon. We wouldn't be where we are today without his push, right? And others too in the tech. I think in general, like Apple and others have helped push things. Touchscreens. I don't think we've had multi-touch without, Apple and Steve Jobs when we did, right? But I totally agree with you. I don't think we'd see the push for electrification in general. That could even like apply to lawn equipment. I mean, boats, right?
Every bit of it, man. It's all a catalyst. Yeah. But I think that's the difference between a founder and a CEO. That maniacal founder is perfect as a startup. Like you have to be crazy to get it to a certain point. But when you've got a board and, a full C-suite, it's like, that's when you get a CEO in there that's more polished, that just maintains things or just, scales slowly. Because one of those CEOs isn't a founder. They could have never gotten it there with their risk appetite. So it's like, it's kind of two different roles. I'm playing that founder's role right now. And like, my goal is to sit on a board and not deal with the headaches every day. But like, we have so far to go until we can stabilize and get it to that point. But it takes someone pretty damn crazy to do crazy things.
Amen. Yeah, it's crazy. And did you see, by the way, the Porsche wireless charging today? I thought that was fascinating. Did you see that, Chris?
No, I missed that. Is that is that kind of the way your cell phone works, where it's going over?
Yes, but it doesn't touch. Yeah, they put a pad in the garage. The pad, I think they said, was 5K, and then the plate on the bottom of the battery is 2K, and it'll come in 2026 to Europe first. And you'll just pull up, and as soon as you get to the right spot, which it kind of will show you on your 360 cam, it'll just start. It'll put the car in park and start charging.
And apparently, Tesla has something similar in the vision. I don't know if it's in the works.
Well, and that's why I brought it up, because it's that's you mentioned people say like Tesla isn't innovating anymore, and I think they are, but just maybe not like as quickly as maybe they were, right? Like with China, and nobody's innovating as quickly as China, period. So. I mean,
yeah, and I get dorky with those things too, where I'm like, I've looked at, and I've talked about this before. People would talk about the 80 amp charging that was available on the early Lightnings, like Erick's can do 80 amps. Jace, I think you're old. You had the standard range like I did, so it didn't do 80.
No, but our extended range. Yep, Justin's did it. Yep. Yeah, we never used it. We didn't even have barely. I think we. 50 amp barely.
So it totally makes sense for the towing needs that like Erick or Martin or others would have. You need to be able to get home after a long day, plug in, and it's got to be ready. And that's been one of the interesting adjustments even that I've had to make going from a standard range to the extended range, is that I cannot plug in at so I turn my charger down, because I just noticed that you get a lot of efficiency losses. Like 80 amps, there are losses there. And you get less losses at 48, less at 40, less at 32. So I had gotten used to charging at that kind of 32 amp, 40 amp area, and in the standard range, pretty much being ready to go overnight. I can't do that in the extended range. And so as cool as it would be to pull up onto a pad and wirelessly charge my EV, if I'm going to take 20% losses, that's not going to work for me. And I know that'll get better,
they didn't say anything about losses. The speed was 11 kilowatt.
Yeah, no, they said it was a 90% efficiency, which is there with regular level 2 charging.
Not bad. Yeah.
And this also isn't anything new or exciting. Like they've had wireless charging. I mean, there's been multiple companies that have went bankrupt doing it with the same efficiency levels. The problem always stems from how much money is someone willing to pay to save 5 seconds when they get home. And it's not thousands of dollars typically.
Yeah. No, but it might be for a Porsche buyer.
Correct. Yeah, that's where the exception is. But like, it's cool. But like, I think for practicality reasons, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Especially now, like you've got something low on the ground, prone to road debris. Not that your bottom of your car gets hit often, but like, how sensitive is it to rock chips? Is my concern.
They did say, that was one of the things they mentioned. They said like if there's any sort of detection of like objects or like you said,
you're gonna have to wash it.
They did say it
is.
will like not charge. They have a bunch of sensors supposedly that they put in that they say will detect anything and anything. So yeah, I mean that's fascinating questions. Yeah.
How will that do, Jason, your area where you've got rock salt and snow and mud and stuff that's going to get stuck up underneath it for a third of the year?
It'll cook it.
Yeah, I would have to see like exactly how they did it too. You know, like is it? They say it's in the floor, so I mean, if it was really flat and it didn't, you know, it could maybe be fine. Like if it's in, you know, right in the center. But you know, I mean, I've even seen Ben Westby with his Lightning gets crazy snowpack.
Oh yeah,
in like side that little cavity right in the front of the battery. I mean, it's insane. Like the amount of snow I've seen people pack inside there.
It finds a way. It finds a way into every nook and cranny. That's for sure.
And I mean, I will say most people, like we even live in a snow belt. We're not dealing with what Ben Westby is dealing with. He's dealing with like feet and feet and feet of snow on mountains, like where, you know, his like driveways, like walking through like a tunnel. But we don't deal quite with that. But I mean, there's been times, you know, where we took it out with 3 feet of snow and, you know, you got to plow through.
Yeah.
And I've gotten stuck in my share of ice storms because we visit Snowshoe, West Virginia frequently.
Oh, we just went to Snowshoe this last winter and it was amazing.
I've got a couple condos there, so we'll talk more.
Yeah, awesome.
But yeah, we plug in there with level 2 charging, and there's times I am chipping away at my level 2 charger to get to it. So it can definitely, you know, you can find the right use case. But I just looked. They said it is $9,500 for everything needed for wireless charging. So it's like, you going to do that to save 10 seconds a day?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, if you're a Porsche owner, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. $200,000 Taycan. Not a big
You're
deal.
like, 10K, sure. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It just reminds me of even like the home backup power where it costs so much money. It's such a cool technology, but we got to get on the same page with this stuff, whether it's wireless charging or how we're going to use vehicle to grid. And like, you know, my vision for this type of stuff is that it needs to be the same. Like any of our EVs needs to plug in to our EVSE.
Same inverter.
Yes. We should be able to buy any kind of inverter and it should all be interoperable. It should all connect.
Well, and it sucks to be like, you know, especially towards the beginning when people were buying Lightnings and it sucked to, you know, people were like, oh, I'm really interested in that home integration system. And it was sucked to be like, don't buy it. Like,
yeah, Sunrun is not a good outlet.
No, like do not buy it. Like just get a transfer switch. You'll be way
$500 later. Yeah.
That's what I did. I think you did the same thing.
Yeah, we did it. I think
that, you know, I have solar panels, but I'm using micro inverters, not a giant inverter. And so I ran into the problem where it really doesn't work. You know, I've got an existing power wall. I've got the Tesla wall connector. I have the J1774 that for a cup of coffee that they made. And I love the thing. And it interacts with my power wall. And I'd love to be able to have that interact with my truck, and it just can't. But it needs to be able to. And I go to look at the Ford system, and it's, you know, I can buy a whole new system for what it's costing me to do that. And it won't work with my won't work with the micro inverters. And even if I had a traditional string inverter system, they said they would not put the system into the existing inverter, and they wouldn't take the existing system into their inverter. So it's just, they got to normalize this stuff. They've got to figure out how these robotaxis are going to work. They've got to start getting together. They need to put, when they have these meetings, whether it's AI, whether it's these, you know, Biden EV summits, they got to get all these people, they got to get them all in the same room, and they got to learn to play nicely with each other, because you know, how many years are we? I feel like we're doing the same thing where we had the CCS and NACS and Chatamo, and we're right there when it comes to these different ways that we're going to do autonomous driving. We're doing the same thing when it comes to way we're going to do vehicle to home, vehicle to everything. And I'm like, guys, can we just learn from our mistakes here?
And what surprised me is that we don't see, like, I almost thought, and maybe we will still see it one day, but I almost thought that we would see Ford and GM put their differences aside and build like they did with that 10-speed transmission, even though it was absolutely dog crap. we built something together for the betterment of society, even though it ended up being for the worst of society. But, like, you know, we built this 10-speed together. We put all our minds, our great minds together. We came up with something, right? I just can't believe that GM and Ford haven't come together and say, we're losing our ass on EVs. We can't make them profitably. Let's at least put all our knowledge together on batteries. And at least we can make the car, right? We can make the car profitably. We do that now, right? We work with ICE vehicles. We can do that. We can't make the batteries profitably. Okay, so let's do it together. It doesn't matter, right? Like it's just
they've worked together with Iona. Like Iona is a group effort amongst auto manufacturers, and it's it from what I've seen, they seem to be rolling out charge stations that look good. They have convenience stores, they have awnings, they have solar, they have
and we see that GM and Ford are on the same schedule. We saw that with this sodium manganese whatever battery, right?
Like LFP.
Ford came out, Ford came out with the announcement.
Breakthrough. That is
2 weeks later, LMR. 2 weeks later, GM comes with the same announcement. Oh, we came out with an LMR, breakthrough too. And it's like, guys, let's work together. I don't know. I don't get it, but
I see what China's doing, and I'm just like, we need to get on the same page, and we need to have U.S. manufacturers, and I need Tesla to be part of that conversation. I'm a big
everybody should be, right? Like you said too, the government should be part of that conversation. All of the manufacturers should be part of that conversation. Yeah.
Got a few more years, I think, before the government's going to cooperate again, unfortunately, and. Before we wrap it up here, Eric, that actually, that's a question that just popped in my mind as we were talking about government. Are there government programs for electrified boats? Is that going away coming up here in September for anybody, or is that not eligible in any way for any of the electrification needs because of the cost of these boats? And is it not part of any program? Are there programs available for boats?
So there's none for consumer boats in the pleasure boating market, which I'm not too upset with. These are expensive boats that very wealthy people are buying. Like, I don't know if our tax dollars should go to it. Maybe R&D stuff, it would be fine. But there's voucher programs out there for work boats, which are great. So whether it's like oyster boats, crab boats, but most of those are state run. So Washington, Oregon, California, and Maine right now are the ones I know of. California has a really cool core program. And it's for powertrains. And so it's like, hey, your boat needs a new engine. Here's $75,000 towards it kind of thing. So it's really cool. I haven't gotten involved in any of those yet because it's on the other coast. Hopefully we'll get there in the springtime if we expand to San Diego. But nothing for consumer boats right now. There is for work boats in a handful of states. But one other thing, you mentioned vehicle to grid. We're trying to do that with boats. I've had a couple of meetings in the last couple of weeks. It's like I have a megawatt of boats sitting in my parking lot right now that I can't tap into. And so it's conversations with the utility companies, with the boat manufacturers, and then some kind of liaison in the middle there to tie it all together. But we've got a marina that we own that's going to go through a huge redevelopment, and I want it to be the most sustainable marina in the world when we're done.
Very cool.
Awesome, man. Well, let's go around the horn and give our final thoughts before we wrap up the night. Jace, what do you have for us, man?
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I learned so much. This was so cool. Like I said, when we were looking for boats, we did brief research, but I think the one that we saw was ARC at the time, and I think we saw 300K or something. We were like, nope, but that's really cool. Like, we would love to do it one day. So, but no, seriously, thank you for taking the time and coming and educating us all. And I hope that there were some people out there that at least heard your name and your business. And, like I said, I want to get an electric boat up at Sandusky. We gotta show these people up here what is possible, because I really do think that there are just so many, just the lakes that I go to growing up or went to growing up and that we go to now. I know this would be a good fit for people. And, I want to do what we do with lightnings, right? And what we do with EVs. So it's super cool.
That's it, man. No, I appreciate you guys. I'm glad this worked out so well. Our biggest challenge right now is education and awareness. So just spreading the word is huge. And I'm happy to be a resource for anybody that has questions. Don't hesitate to reach out to me through any channels. But this is great. Keep up the good work. Like even in the automotive world, education and debunking all these myths is still a huge struggle. So keep up the good work, guys. I love what you're doing.
And I know you're on TikTok, you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube. We've got your website, your YouTube link in the description. Are you on X? So we've got quite a few people on X that are watching. And what's your tag on X?
I think I have one. I don't even know what it is. Actually, it might be Electric Boat Dude. But I've never. I'm terrible at it. I've got to start putting on more on there. I've got like 2 posts.
Yeah.
I think I don't even know my login. I need to do more on there, but I think it should be Electric Boat Dude. But that platform isn't just not. It's fallen by the wayside right now. I need a social media manager that's dedicated to it, and that's another 3rd, 4th salary that we need to add onto the business.
Right. So in the meantime, is the YouTube channel where a lot of your content, or TikTok? Where's most of your content coming from? Is it
Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook are all going to be the same. YouTube is a little more polished stuff. Long form content goes on there.
okay?
But yeah, either my personal stuff gets a little rowdy if people want to see the gloves taken off and me deal with trolls. My Facebook and Instagram is a hoot, man. It's a good time.
That's awesome.
I love it.
And for me, help me pay off my my Robotaxi ride. It cost me about $20 this morning. So still better to drive my old Lightning. But yeah, look forward to that video dropping, guys. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to drop the Robotaxi experience, taking my daughter to school in the Robotaxi. And so make sure you check out Bo Family EV and give me some views there. The more views I get, the more comments, the likes, all that kind of good stuff. It all helps to get more visible. And small channels and small podcasts like these, anytime you guys can spread the word and share them and just drop comments and engagement, it helps the algorithm. So we're a tiny little part of the EV community, and we're trying to grow, and we're just trying to be something other than the normal, repetitive voices out there. We like to talk about these different things and how they fit into our lives in parts of the country that aren't just, California centric, or we want to talk about how these work in the Midwest. How do these work on water? I know with Josh and Jesse from the charge point operator perspective, and we've had Jovi and Aircraft on here. So for those of you guys that enjoy the content, anytime you can drop a comment at all on any of our channels, it really helps us out. Make sure you help out Eric. We've had some other folks in the comments. We've got our friends at EV Geek that are out there. I always like to shout them out. And Martin Rebuilds, who does some amazing stuff on electrified overlanding, helps support the community out there, these small content creators. Some of us are wanting to go out there, and we're trying to pay for things like the streaming software, like the video and stuff that we do. So yeah. We appreciate you guys watching and tuning in again, and like and subscribe, as cheesy as that is, we have to ask. And
smash that button.
Smash that like button. I'm going to go grab dinner. It's probably bedtime for you guys out there in the East.
Yeah.
But that'll wrap it up for our podcast. We're going to hopefully get Martin back across the border soon, and we'll get him to join. We definitely need to have Eric back with Martin, man. I think that would be a great episode.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. Yeah. I agree.
I could talk about a whole lot more. We could get into nitty gritty of powertrains. There's a lot. No, this was great, guys. Thanks so much.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. We're going to call it a night. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much, all.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.